Okay, I'm making this video just to tell people what the Lord has spoken to me about the book of Revelation. And you can study this out. The first thing I remember the Lord speaking to me, he said the sky rolled up like a scroll is a mushroom cloud from a nuclear strike. Okay? And then that's in Revelation chapter 6, somewhere around verse 12 to 17. Another thing the Lord spoke to me, and I remember pretty clearly, is he spoke to me and told me that China is the enormous red dragon in Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. And the bear is Russia in Revelation chapter 13. And he told me that the leopard, or spotted like a leopard, represents Islam in chapter 13. And I can testify as how he told me that. I was watching a YouTube video, and it was talking. It showed a map of the Middle East, and it said, and it was showing all the. It put a black spot on all the areas that were controlled by militant groups. So it put a black spot on this little area, and it said this is controlled by Hamas, and another black spot over here, and it said this area is controlled by ISIS, and another black, and eventually the map was spotted like a leopard. And while I was watching the video, the Lord spoke to me and said it's spotted like a leopard, and that's how I connected the verses. So the government of the Antichrist, the beast, is spotted like a leopard. The Lord also spoke to me back in 2015. He said, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and Turkey are planning to destroy America, and Obama is part of it. That was back in 2015. I remember I made a video about that, and people sent me messages in the notes saying, that can't be right, you're a false prophet. After all, Turkey is a NATO ally. Well, not anymore. Turkey has changed. There's been a coup attempt. There's been, Turkey is holding, all the nukes that used to be held by NATO have either disappeared or they're being held captive by Turkey. In the most recent military exercise in the region, Turkey was designated an enemy. Okay, so Turkey has changed alliances. The other thing that the Lord spoke to me, he told me the rider on the white horse. Now this came by revelation from an angel of God. I actually saw the angel of God. He told me he's the angel of Revelation chapter 6 verse 1, the rider on the white horse. He said he's also in charge of the rapture in Revelation chapter 14 verse 14, and part of God's army of Revelation 19, I think it's verse 14. He's the rider on the white horse. The Lord also spoke to me, this was recently, he spoke to me, he said, he spoke to me kind of in a, I don't know how to explain this, almost like he spoke in tongues to me and my heart interpreted it. But he said, where do you think when Jesus has at his second coming, when Jesus returns, where does he first land his feet? Where do his feet first hit this earth at the second coming? We know when the rapture comes, Jesus doesn't actually land his feet on the earth. We meet him, he comes down, but we meet him in the air. But at the second coming, he comes to earth. Where does he come? And he gave me Revelation chapter 14 verse 1. When Jesus first returns to this earth, he first lands his feet on Mount Zion, Revelation chapter 14 verse 1, and he first appears with his 144,000. That's why they're called the first fruits. Have you ever wondered why the 144,000? They're the last guys in the end of the age, but somehow they're called the first fruits. Well, it's because they're the first to come back with him. What else did he tell me? He told me, when I had the revelation of the angel that's the rider on the white horse, also somehow I just knew that he's also the angel that spoke with John, and John fell down to worship him. And he says, no, don't do it. I'm a fellow servant. And I can't remember what verse that is in, but it happens twice in the book of Revelation where John starts to worship this angel, and the angel says, don't do it. I'm a fellow servant with you. That's the same angel that visited me. He's the rider on the white horse. He first appears in the throne room in heaven. Okay. Revelation 6:1, he appears in the throne room of heaven. He receives a crown from the Lamb of God and from the throne of God. And he sees what's written on the scroll. He also told me, this angel told me, that his job is to make sure that everything comes to pass exactly as is written in the scroll. The Lord told me also that the sixth trumpet is the same exact event as the sixth bowl of God's wrath, and the seventh trumpet is the same exact event as the seventh bowl of God's wrath. So, and then after the Lord speaks to me, I always study it out. So when the Lord spoke to me and said the sky rolled up like a scroll as a mushroom cloud from a nuclear strike, I had to get on the internet and go to Bible Gateway and look up that verse to figure out. And then once I read it and put it into context, you see the stars fall from the sky, and then the sky is rolled up like a scroll, and everybody's hiding in the dens of the rocks and the caves of the mountains. It's pretty clearly a nuclear strike. He also told me that nuclear strike, the hour that Babylon the Great falls, is the hour that the beast comes to power. Whenever you see the word hour, Revelation 3:10 is the same event. The hour of trial to come upon the whole earth is the same event as the hour that Babylon the Great falls. Revelation chapter 14, verse 7 and 8. Also, it says it in Revelation chapter 18, verse 17 and 19. And also verse 10 in chapter 18. But also that same hour that Babylon the Great falls is the same hour that the beast comes to power. Revelation 17:12. He also, if you read Revelation 17:12, everybody's always wondering who the Antichrist is. But God says there's 10 leaders of the beast. One of them is the Antichrist. And the 10 leaders choose the one leader. And they say, we're going to put you in charge of the people. So let's say the beast rises up today. And let's say it was Putin and Jinping, and Kim Jong-un, and the Ayatollah of Iran. That's 4 of the 10 leaders. Erdogan of Turkey, that's 5. Trudeau, Obama, Macron, the Pope. Okay, let's say those are like 8 of the 10, okay? Let's just say, for theory's sake. Then they all decide, hey, Obama, you're really good with the people. You got a plan. We're going to put you in charge of the people. And then Putin says, I want to be in charge of the military. And China says, we'll be in charge of the economy. So Putin would be in charge of the military. Jinping would be in charge of the economy. And then who are they going to put in charge of the people? The Antichrist is the guy who makes all those decisions governing the people. And it's Putin and Jinping and the Ayatollah who all choose him. And that's why the Bible even says they give their power to the beast. So this should give you a lot of stuff to study out. The Lord spoke to me. He told me that the sequence of events that lead up to the rapture starts in Revelation chapter 14, verse 6. The gospel goes out to every nation, language. Remember, just before Revelation chapter 14, verse 14, 14, verse 1 through 5, Jesus appears on Mount Zion with his 144,000. That's the second coming. That sequence of events ends right there. And another sequence of events begins. The Lord told me there's 4 sequences of events in the book of Revelation that run parallel, with the 7th or the 6th trumpet being the same event as the 6th bowl of God's wrath, and the 7th trumpet being the same event as the 7th bowl of God's wrath. And if you take those events and back them up, you'll find the first sequence of events begins with the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6:1 and ends with the 7th trumpet. The second sequence of events begins in Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, and ends with Jesus landing his feet on Mount Zion. The third sequence of events begins in Revelation chapter 14 verse 6. And guess what happens? First, the gospel goes out to every nation, language, tribe, and people. Then the hour of God's judgment comes and Babylon the Great falls. Then when Babylon the Great falls, the beast comes to power and brings out the mark of the beast. That's why it says a third angel followed. Revelation chapter 14 verse 9 through 11. Then what happens? Revelation chapter 14 verse 12 and 13. You have persecution and martyrs and patient endurance and faithfulness. And then martyrs. Then what happens? The rapture is Revelation 14 verse 14 through 20. Then what happens? Revelation chapter 15. God's about to pour out his wrath. These are all things that the Lord spoke to me, and then by reading scriptures it's confirmed. I don't read the scriptures and try to figure it out and then say, well, this is what this means and this is what that means because I figured it out. No, usually the Lord speaks to me first, and then I have to study it out. Like when the Lord told me the sixth trumpet is the same event as the sixth bowl of God's wrath, I had to do a cross comparison of the two verses, and then I realized, yeah, there's a war that happens in the region of the Euphrates. That's it. Yeah, it's unless there's two wars that happen in the region of the Euphrates at the end of the age, which I doubt. And the stars falling from the sky in Revelation chapter 12 verse 4 is the same event where the stars fall from the sky in Revelation chapter 6 verse 12 through 17. And it's the same event that Jesus spoke of in Matthew chapter 13 verse 37 through 41, where he said the stars will fall from the sky and the sign in the sky of the coming of the Son of Man. And then he says, and all the nations will mourn. Well, the book of Revelation says it a little differently. It says the stars fall from the sky, then the sky's rolled up like a scroll, and everybody's hiding in the dens of the rocks and the caves of the mountains, and they're mourning. They're calling out to God, saying his great wrath the day of his wrath has come, and they're asking for the mountains to fall on us. Let us die right now rather than have to emerge from a bomb shelter to a post-apocalyptic world, an after World War III earth where the beast is now in power. And mark my words, the 10 leaders, I know it's Putin, Jinping, and Kim Jong-un. Those are 3 of the 10. One of the leaders that comes to power, if you look at Revelation chapter 12, where the beast has 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its horns. And then in Revelation chapter 13, the very next chapter, the beast has 7 heads and 10 horns, but now it has 10 crowns. One of the leaders that already had a crown, are Putin, Jinping, the Ayatollah, and Kim Jong-un, Trudeau, possibly Macron. That's 6 of them. One of the leaders that receives the crown after the stars fall from the sky is going to be Obama. Obama's going to raise to a level, because remember, the Lord spoke to me and said that Russia, North Korea, Iran, and Turkey at that time in 2015 were planning to destroy America, and Obama was part of it. Obama is part of that Iranian alliance that's allied with North Korea and Iran and Turkey and Russia. After that, China got involved, okay? Because the Lord spoke to me before China was on board. After the Taizhou bombing, then China got on board. Okay, so a lot of the revelation I have came to me way before. Before all of this stuff is actually playing out right now. And it's just, everything that's happening is always confirmation. The Wuhan virus, the Lord spoke to me and said that I was the first one on YouTube to say this was an act of biological warfare from China. And then we see reports from the news saying it's not, but it is. They're lying. Why would they lie? Because they don't want to push a war. They know it's going to go nuclear. The Lord spoke to me and said China launches the first strike. And the hour of God's judgment, minute 1, is found in Revelation chapter 12, verse 4, where the dragon sends stars from the sky to the earth. And then minute 55 is found in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 17. And after World War III, there's a time of no wind. Revelation chapter 7 verse 1 is a continuation. So get your Bible out and study out everything I'm saying, and you're going to find out that, guess what? It's not a pre-tribulation rapture, but it's not a post-tribulation rapture. The rapture happens after the mark of the beast comes out, but before God pours out his wrath.